Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Omar Khalid. But today is the 21st of December 2023, and we'll be highlighting the following stories during the course of our show. We'll begin with the big success for Pakistan and defeat as far as terrorism is concerned, where Sarfaraz Bangalzai accepted and his defeat and of course surrendered to the authorities along with 70 of his companions as well. A press conference was made in Quetta with Provincial Information Minister Jan Achakzai also in attendance, in which Bangalzai said that he wanted to return to normal life, and this is the second example of terrorists such as Bangalzai, who is surrendering his arms and along with all of his companions is moving to the mainstream to lead a normal life. Before that, we also had the example of Shambe, who also surrendered himself to the authorities. As far as terrorism in Balochistan is concerned, this seems to be a very positive development as far as the Baloch insurgents are concerned, as both Shambe and Bangalzai were part of the BNA, and now with both the leaders gone, the BNA will most probably not be able to survive. This and more will be part of our first segment as far as Pakistan's security apparatus is concerned, and of course how the government and the organizations are moving to thwart all the terrorist organizations and terrorist activities from the country. Secondly, we'll be talking about the economy of Pakistan, the economic outlook of Pakistan. We're in the last month of the year, in fact a couple of days before the new year begins, and a lot of positive developments as far as Pakistan's economy is concerned. The rupee appreciated for the 7th consecutive session against the US dollar. Then we've seen the Pakistan's current account that has gone into surplus for the first time in 6 months. Tight monetary policy and stringent administrative measures that have been taken by the government are yielding positive results. The exports of the country also increasing towards 9 countries, and of course the net foreign investment has jumped 8.1% in the last 5 months. Then our caretaker Prime Minister Khaqan also said that students need to utilize their full potential to contribute to the country's economic progress. He said this while interacting with students at the Ghulam Ishaq Institute of Engineering, Sciences and Technology. At the same time, he is also presided over the Prime Minister's Youth Program Review meeting, in which he talked about the importance of skill training for the youth of Pakistan, and of course how to target the youth so that they can contribute effectively to Pakistan's economy. This and more is going to be part of our second story. Then we'll be talking about Omicron and COVID. Unfortunately, we have to come back to this because this is a strain of Omicron under the COVID-19 viruses that is slowly and steadily becoming more and more prevalent in different countries across the world. This strain, that is the JN.1, has been found in India and in China, in the United Kingdom and the United States of America. The risk, of course, is currently low. Current vaccines do continue to offer protection as far as the World Health Organization says, but we need to be careful. And we all know what the standard operating procedures are as far as avoiding oneself to the maximum from getting COVID-19 is concerned. Lastly, we'll be talking about the 41st death anniversary of the creator of Pakistan's national anthem, Abdul Athar Hafiz Jalandhari, that is being observed today. He was born in Jalandhar in Indian Punjab on the 14th of January in 1900. His family migrated from Jalandhar to Lahore after partition, and of course he is the man behind our national anthem. And of course just because of this, and I mean there are so many other facets to his personality, but just because of this he will always be remembered, the creator of Pakistan's national anthem. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns big success for Pakistan on the terrorism front, where Sarfaraz Ahmad Bangalzai, a commander of the banned militant group Baloch National Army, otherwise known as the BNA, announced his surrender along with 70 of his associates. This was announced at a press conference that was made in Quetta with Provincial Information Minister Jan Achakzai also in attendance. It's a very important development as far as the situation in Balochistan and of course the terrorist outfits that are prevalent in Balochistan is concerned. To discuss more on that aspect, we've been joined by Lieutenant General retired Raza. He's a defense analyst. Sir, thank you very much to have joined us. How important is this surrendering of Bangalzai and his associates in the current scenario, and how important is it for Balochistan?
Well, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. I think this is an encouraging development because hopefully this will end, the so-called Baloch National Army because its head has surrendered itself. And if there are any remnants, either in Pakistan hiding at some places or in Afghanistan or Iran, I think they should also now surrender. And it's a creditable achievement of our government and also of our security apparatus. And the events held augur well for the internal security of Pakistan, particularly in the provinces of Balochistan and Sindh, where foreign sponsored terrorists have been targeting the CPEC, particularly the Chinese engineer in the past, their diplomats, and even Chinese language teachers in Karachi universities, beside other places. So these attacks were clearly transnational, that were sponsored by India from terrorist safe havens located in Afghanistan, Iran, and elsewhere, and they continue to threaten Chinese and Pakistani interests and need to be met and responded to resolutely. That has already been decided by the government, including, through negotiations, as it happened now, diplomatic pressures on the Taliban government and, where needed, on the Iranian government, intelligence sharing, aggressive, defensive, and if needed, even offensive measures and means. And hopefully, the remorseful statement of this group and their leaders will, I think, also convince all others to emulate them and to come and lay down their arms and be amalgamated in the society of Pakistan. And again, revelations by the group about Indian involvement and recruitment, training and financing of terrorists is a very serious issue that must be raised by our as well as the Chinese governments with India and with others, particularly, the P5 members of the Security Council.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the P5 members of the Security Council, because two of those members are also pointing the fingers at India because of its involvement in transnational terrorism. Now, I'd like to refer, because now that you mentioned India, and this was my next question, I'd like to quote what Bangalzai said. He said that these people, and he was referring to his organization, the people in his organization and other organizations, are only working on foreign agendas. And he particularly mentioned that India funds terrorism and unrest in Balochistan, and he has personally witnessed the situation. What needs to be done as far as Pakistan is concerned? Pakistan has highlighted this many a times on the different fora. The world listens or does not, or maybe listens and does not act on it because of its affiliation with India. What should be now the responsibility of Pakistan, now that it's being more and more apparent that India, with proofs like that of Bangalzai, that India is directly involved in terrorist activities in Balochistan? All right, we are discussing, of course, the issue of terrorism in Balochistan with Lieutenant General Raza Muhammad Khan. He is a leading defense analyst, and of course, we were talking to him about Sarfaraz Ahmad Bangalzai, who was a commander of the banned militant group Baloch National Army, who announced his surrender along with 70 of his associates. He said during the press conference where he announced his surrender that he thought that his armed struggle was for the Balochi rights, but later realized that the blood of the Baloch people was being sacrificed for people's own interests. He said, quote unquote, India is involved in all of these conspiracies. That is why we have decided to join the national mainstream. Me and 70 of my associates have joined the national mainstream. He also mentioned the year 2014, where 155 innocent Baloch were killed in Avaran, and after they refused to pay extortion money. This and more had been going on since quite some time in Balochistan, and organizations such as the BNA was behind this. And there are other organizations also that are rampant, that are trying to create havoc. And of course, credit goes to our organizations, defense organizations, that are thwarting all such attempts by these militant groups. We get to know of one, but there are then 100 such attempts that are thwarted by our intelligence organizations. What he also added, Bangalzai, during his press conference was that thousands of Baloch had been killed over the past 20 years, and these people are only working on foreign agendas. He said, what I have done for the last 15 years, I have only regret for it. And that, I feel, needs to be also echoed by all the other militant leaders who are currently present in Balochistan. The fact remains that Pakistan and all the people who are who are part of Pakistan need to work for Pakistani interests and not for Indian interests or any other foreign agendas, and create havoc or participate in terrorist incidents in different parts of Pakistan. And we've been highlighting during our last few shows also on how these activities have been going on, in particular reference to two major provinces, that is Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The fact also remains that the Indian involvement has been always there, because India has always tried to destabilize Pakistan directly and indirectly, do various methodologies, whether it be through a spy network. Kulbhushan Yadav is still under arrest in Pakistan, and or other activities for which we have found proof of Indian involvement. In Lahore also there was an incident some time back where the Indian involvement had been confirmed. And then when militant commanders such as Bangalzai lay down their arms and quote unquote highlight the Indian involvement of terror activities in Balochistan, and how they were hand in hand and following the agenda of the Indians. He also talked about how the Indian money had provided the BNA commanders with luxuries, and he said, quote unquote, that he realized that in fact they were enemies of the state, and that is why he had decided to dissociate from the Baloch National Army. If you remember well, Shambe was the leader of the BNA who also gave up his arms and surrendered to the state, and now that Bangalzai has surrendered to the state, the main two leaders of BNA have now surrendered. We are rejoined by Lieutenant General Raza Muhammad Khan, defense analyst. Thank you very much, sir, to be back with us. Bangalzai and before that Shambe, do you feel the BNA is now finished, because these were the two major leaders of this militant organization?
Well, as I said, we hope that it is finished. But I think the Indians and their other sponsors will continue, to re-raise them with different names. And I'm sure, our securities agencies are aware of this, and they will not let them succeed in these efforts. And even if they do, I think we will be able to tackle it through our national action plans, and in particularly, I would say, through our provincial action plans. By that, I mean that, against Baloch terrorists, I think both the CTD departments of the province of Balochistan as well as Sindh, they need to be further augmented, strengthened. Their capacity needs to be increased, and they need to be given adequate training, and they need to be equipped better than what weapons and equipment the terrorists have been getting from various sources, which was even questioned by our representative at the United Nations. And he said, I think there needs to be an investigation how terrorists have been getting sophisticated weapons of NATO caliber from Afghanistan and from other places. So I think that's also an area of concern, and therefore I think the police will have to play a very important role in addition to the federal agencies and security institutions.
Raza Khan Sahab, you mentioned the CDT Balochistan. I'd like to refer to a statement that they made recently, in which they said at least 66 innocent people have been martyred in 158 terrorist activities of the BLA and the BLF during the current year, and over 30 people have also been injured in such activities this year. 8 moderate terrorists have also been arrested during the counter-terrorism operations. Uh, how do you see the whole of the CTD and our intelligence organizations as far as these other two militant organizations, the BLF and the BLA, are concerned? And what should be the methodology of our defense agencies in order to thwart further the activities of such militant organizations?
Well, I think this is the responsibility of the provincial counterterrorism agencies as well as the federal agencies. And in that, it is also the responsibility, I would say, of the civil society, which must point out all these terrorists residing inside the urban areas. It is also the responsibility of the political leadership across the political divide to raise awareness about terrorists living amongst our own people and killing our people, and also threatening and jeopardizing our national security, instead, I would say economic security, because most of these below terrorists have been directed, to target CPEC projects and our Chinese friends. So therefore, it has to be a collective effort of Pakistan, China, and the people of Pakistan to work together, to thwart the efforts of terrorists of all shades and hues living inside Pakistan. We have to trace out further, their financiers, their supporters, and other people who may be sympathetic towards their cause, advertently or inadvertently.
I'd also like to refer to what the Provincial Information Minister John Achazai said during this press conference, in which Bangalze, along with 70 of his aides, surrendered to the state. He said that there was a need to bridge misunderstandings and gaps. Do you feel there's a deliberate attempt by such terrorist organizations or elements on the behest of countries such as India to deliberately create misunderstandings so that there's a bridge within different segments of the society, which leads to more people entering into attaching themselves to such organizations?
Absolutely. I think that is part of their modus operandi, and they have been creating, rifts amongst the various segments of particularly, the Baloch and the Sindhi society. And they have even been forcing them to spread lies. And I think the mention was made about the tragic loss of the helicopter in which senior military officers and commandos lost their lives. And the Indian, handlers of these terrorists told them to own it up and to say that it was a sabotage. Although it was clearly at that time it was declared by the ISPR that unfortunate incident happened because of a technical fault. And that was done, to spread further chaos and terror in Pakistan, and particularly in the province of Balochistan and Sindh. So yes, I agree. That is one kind of tactics by their handlers to do that. And now I think people should be aware of all these means and measures adopted by their sponsors, and we need to be all very vigilant as citizens and as our society.
Raza Khan Sahab, now that you mentioned the helicopter crash that happened last year, in which, of course, 6 Pakistani army officials lost their lives, this has been claimed now officially by BRAS, which has taken responsibility on India's command. Tell us a little bit about BRAS and what measures need to be taken now to completely dismantle BRAS.
You see, as I said, you have to have defensive measures. Essentially, you have to take, our security audits, and first of all, identify our internal weaknesses and fill the gaps if there are any, through vigilance, through training, through education of the people, spreading awareness. At the same time, there has to be other means and measures, and that could include defensive operations, with the bias on military operations, as well as, if needed, as I said, offensive operations, because the United Nations Charter permits us to take all means and methods that are available to us in order to protect us from terrorists who are who have been brainwashed, in this case by India and others who do not want our economic development through the CPEC to succeed.
Raza Khan Saab, Bangal Zai mentioned, no, not Bangal Zai, in fact, Jana Zai Saab mentioned Gulzar Imam Shambe and how he has had an important role for facilitating the negotiations. Do you feel Bangal Zai Shambe can further, proceed to bring in more people who have gone to the other side, to bring them to the mainstream and to make them understand what is right and how to work for the benefit of Pakistan and not the interests of other countries such as India?
Well, I think his revelations and his, remorseful press conference and his appeal, to the likes of himself should incentivize everyone else who have been misguided by their handlers, and we hope that that happens. And if that happens, I think it will be good for them and their parents. The provincial government, our political leadership, as I said earlier, they need to actually talk to their families, their extended families, particularly their male members, to again make an effort to contact them if they can, whether they are living inside Pakistan or they are living abroad in other countries, in Pakistan's neighboring countries. And again, family pressures could really matter a lot in our society. And that, combined with all other measures that we have been taking in the past and which we are going to take in the future, I think would lead to reintegrations of some of these estranged, kind of misguided people. Of course, if some of these people have been involved, in very heinous crimes, and the law will take its own course. And of course, some of them probably, if they can prove themselves that they were innocent, then that has to be decided by our courts. But I think all these efforts need to be continued by the government of Balochistan, I would say, also the government of Sindh and all other provincial governments, as well as federal agencies and also the civil society.
Thank you very much, Raza Khan Sahab. That was Lieutenant General Raza Muhammad Khan, defense analyst, joining us and talking to us about terrorism in Balochistan and how the surrender of arms of Bangal Zai, Sarfaraz Ahmed Bangal Zai and his 70 associates will prove to be a good step in the right direction as far as not only mainstreaming of all such militants is concerned, but also to foster in peace and stability in provinces such as Balochistan. Let's come to our second segment, and our second segment concerns Pakistan's economic outlook, how Pakistan's economy has been moving further. There are so many different indicators, macroeconomic specifically, to highlight how Pakistan's economy is moving in the right direction. To discuss different aspects of this economic outlook, we've been joined by Dr. Khaqan Hassan Najeeb. He's a former advisor to the Finance Ministry, and we're joining him after quite some time. Dr. Saab, welcome back to Newsroom, and it's always a pleasure to have you on our show. Let's begin with the nitty-gritty of what economy is all about. How do you see the fiscal year 2023? In October 2023, there was a report that was taken out by the State Bank of Pakistan that highlighted different aspects of the fiscal year. Now that fiscal year 2024 has also begun with the macroeconomic indicators showing a positive outlook, what is your expectation from the coming year?
Omar, good to see you after a while. So it's a good time to be talking about how the economy is behaving in the fiscal year. Um, we started June, a new IMF program had happened. Our reserves built up to about $8.7 billion. So, what one was hoping was that now we will successfully continue with the IMF program. IMF program lay the foundation of macro stability in Pakistan. The first 3 months till 30th September, we had to go through the first review. So it's comforting to note that Pakistan was successfully able to do the first review. The staff level agreement was reached, and the $700 million tranche would hopefully flow into Pakistan by early Jan. Now, that is the what you call the fundamental stability creating instrument that Pakistan has, the sanctity of the IMF program. Now, you couple that with some of the steps that the establishment and the government put together took, which including some curbs on smuggling, some de dollarization of the economy, an attempt that hoarding of fertilizer, hoarding of sugar should be dealt most severely, and then the Afghan transit trade issue, taking both regulatory measures on the Afghan transit trade and also some measures on the border. I think all this created confidence in the at least the sophisticated investor. In what you saw in Pakistan was an upsurge in the Pakistan Stock Exchange, which, by the way, was trading at levels around 40,000, a very low price to earnings ratio. Simply put, very low prices of the shares, trading at levels that Pakistan was on, default level being compared to the likes of Sri Lanka. Our reserves were below $4 billion before the IMF program. So today we stand at a comfortable juncture where the gyrations in the rupee have died down. The rupee has strengthened more organically as our reserves have depleted, which they will, because we still in a balance of payments challenge. And they are down to about 7 billion from the 8.7 that had been built up, but still the depletion is slow. I think inflation is plateauing out. The fiscal, which is the simply how much we've earned and how much we've spent on the first quarter, is about 0.9% of GDP. Last year it was 1%, a slight improvement. But of course, curbing imports, having more dollar inflow, remittances down, but maybe not as much as they would have been if we had not worked on de-dollarization. Exports slightly uptick have ensured that our current account in the first 5 months of the fiscal is considerably controlled and is hovering around $1.1 billion. I think it was more than $3-4 billion
Okay.
last year.
Dr. Khaqan, we'll continue our conversation, but we have to go to a short break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and we're discussing Pakistan's economic outlook in the fiscal year 2023 and what the expectations are from the fiscal year 2024 with our renowned economic guest and specialist, Dr. Khaqan Najeeb. Dr. Saab, we were talking about the fiscal year 2023. You gave some examples of how the government and the establishment moved in tandem in order to create an environment that was conducive for Pakistan's economic outlook at the end of fiscal year 2023. Now that the fiscal year 2024 has begun, Pakistan's current account has apparently gone into surplus for the first time in 6 months. The deficit has narrowed to 64% in the first 5 months of the fiscal year 2024. What are the factors that you attribute to this?
So largely what we've been able to do is that we've kept our imports, at a very slower pace. And that has been one done through the rupee adjustment whenever the rupee weakens. And I don't mean, I mean the weakening that started from 150 to where we stand now. So there is, the imports are expensive. The policy rate is at 22%. Omar, a lot of people talk and say that, why have we kept the policy rate so high? One of the precise reasons to keep policy rate high and curb demand in the country is so that the demand for imports also stays low, and that is showing up. So the import has been curbed. That curbing of imports has helped you bring down the current account deficit to very manageable levels. Previously, we were thinking that when we close 30th of June this year, the current account deficit would hover somewhere around $6.5 billion. Now, the newer estimates are more so near the $4 billion mark. So you have saved $2.5 billion that you would have had to borrow to pay that amount as well. So in the new estimates that you'd see on the gross financing when the IMF comes back in January, you will also see that gross financing needs are also reduced, because that is the key aspect, the external sector borrowing, and how do we sail that in the next 6 months. So, overall, there is stability. There are initial signs of some recovery in the agriculture sector as well. In the first quarter, the agriculture growth has been around 5%. Last year, the growth was very low because we were suffering from floods. Cotton is doing much, much better. Cotton till now is about 8 million bales. Hopefully, we will cross 11 million bales this year. That itself is a great impetus to our economy. The large scale manufacturing is still hovering on the lower side. And that is because you aren't selling as many cars because you've curbed imports. That is because your imports are curbed, so your raw material intake is also slow. And I think that's the price that Pakistan is still paying to ensure that current account stays lower till we are able to secure enough of debt financing and hopefully some work on the investments that have to come through to Pakistan and the financial accounts. So, being technical, the financial accounts are the monies that come in through the multilaterals. This year, the first 5 months have seen a slower intake on the multilaterals as well. And that's because the IMF program approval just came in. So, in the month of January, I'm hoping for the $700 million on the IMF, 350 on the World Bank, and similarly, a few $100 million of ADB and AIIB, so that these monies also pick up. So our financial account, which still stays negative, we are paying more to the multilaterals than we are borrowing from them, is propped up so that our reserves are built from $7 billion onwards. And then, of course, Omar, there are the stock market has reacted well. People have made money, and good luck to the people who've made 65 to 70% return in the matter of 5 6 months. The market was trading at a very low point. Our bond internationally, which is an example of how the international players treat us, has also increased in values. All our bonds, the one due in April 24 and subsequent ones, have improved. I'm a little disappointed that Fitch rated Pakistan still triple C, where it was before the IMF program. I think the risks are there. I tend to agree with them. External sector risks are still there. Fiscal slippages can happen. But being in an IMF program, securing the $25 billion, the Fitch upgrade one notch would have helped us go to international markets. We need to borrow from the commercial markets about three and a half to $4 billion. That would have, lowered the interest rate that would have been charged to us. But maybe the government tried, but was not able to convince them that we are more stable, and the Fitch rating one notch up should have happened. That's one of my disappointments, that we have not, been able to either convince them or they were too hard. But hopefully in coming months, of course, now 8th of February is coming. A new transition is going to happen. The second IMF review is due. So lots of hard work in front of us as well. We
That is
need to
so true.
keep this stability.
abreast and afloat and at the right pace as we have been doing in the last few months. Let's talk about the net foreign investment, foreign direct investment that has increased. And of course, the remittances also in November this year were at a high. In September, it was 172.6 million. In August, it was 142 million. But in fiscal year 2024, it was November that was the highest. How important is the role of the FDI and remittances as well, as far as strengthening or stabilizing Pakistan's economy is concerned?
So, I'm glad you've asked that question because in the first half of the program, we've talked about the debt creating flows that are necessary, which are our multilaterals, our commercial borrowing, the IMF borrowing, and, some of the flows that will come through Geneva. But the more important part are the non debt creating inflows that have to come in. So they relate to our remittances keeping stable, and more so, they relate to Pakistan being able to secure foreign direct investment, not only in terms of the monies that have to come in, but the technological transfer, the managerial transfer. Let me try and explain that fact. Pakistan mines and mineral holds a great potential, but we or any company in Pakistan or any company ordinarily from abroad also can't do that work. That technological transfer is with, the likes of Barrick Gold, Rio Tinto, or BHP Billiton. These are world's, best companies which do extraction not only in their host countries, Canada and Australia, but even in South Africa. So we have to go to these kind of companies and bring the technological know-how. So that's one kind of FDI that we should be looking at, and
Okay.
that's the best kind of FDI. And of course, FDI into selling the part of Recordec we own, the PIAs, the discos, agriculture sector, ITES. That's all part of the game, and also domestic investor getting excited as well. So investment of Pakistan, just Umar, this is a figure that for Pakistan in the next couple of years is the most important one. Pakistan's investment to GDP now hovers at a low of 13.7% when we closed FY23 in June. For every country in Asia that has done well, the East Asian miracle, the Chinese miracle, more recently Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Bangladesh, and India, the investment to GDP went up to 25 to 35% and at times 40% of GDP. That is how they were able to create the export manufacturing, the know how in the agriculture to be better in the productivity arena. So that is Pakistan's future. And investment, FDI, foreign portfolio investment, improvement in Pakistan's public sector development budgets, the ADPs of the provinces, the PSDP of the federal government. So it is invested, with higher quality spending. And lastly, Pakistan's domestic investor to be excited beyond gold, dollar, and real estate. So, incentivizing the productive sectors of the country. That should be Pakistan's next 5 years as we stabilize currently and move to more resilient growth model in the coming years.
Now, when you talk of resilient growth models, one of the broader aspects of the growth model is also a broader export model that could be beneficial for Pakistan. If you look at the latest estimates, the regional exports have swollen over 16%, particularly towards China, but towards other important countries as well, whether it be Bangladesh, whether it be Sri Lanka, Nepal, and other countries as well, like Iran, like Nepal, like Bhutan, like the Maldives. Those have also increased. What should be the mechanism as far as further consolidating or increasing our regional exports, because this is what Pakistan also wants to become, an export oriented economy?
So, Umar, I was, for the past couple of days writing a paper on how Pakistan should build a resilient growth model which is different than reliance on imported debts and consumption, which is very high in Pakistan. So if we want to move away from both these areas and talk about the stuff that you just mentioned, so what is it again that we can learn from Asian countries? What is common? So what is common is one thing that I mentioned: high investment to GDPs, and especially in the productive sectors of the economy, whether that was connecting their small businesses to become part of the global value chain, or whether in Bangladesh that was creating a textile which is now selling to the EU. Again, they were not investing in gold or real estate, but investing in their women who were doing a lot of this work. I think the second thing that is common in this is that all these economy had some kind of market orientation, a competitive industrial structure. We, on the other hand, have tried to survive our industry on the crutches of subsidies, concessions, and exemptions. I think it is time to create an industrial base in the country which is more competitive. Many of these industries will lose out, but there'll be survivors which will do much better and compete in the world. And then, of course, the model of, you know, trying to sell things in Pakistan through, import substitution has to be kind of changed into where, you want to connect to the world. Just look at the fact that our export to GDP is merely 9%. Again, these countries which have been able to grow and grow with resilience have had exports hovering from 22 to 35% of their GDP.
And
We've
this is what
created
Pakistan
two.
needs to aim towards. I think, Dr. Saab, I completely understand your point, but we're a bit short of time, or else we would have continued discussion. An absolute pleasure to have you on board today on my show, and I hope to see more of you in the coming days and weeks as well. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us to talk about Pakistan's economic outlook in the fiscal year 2023 and what are the expectations in the fiscal year 2024. Thank you very much, sir, again. Let's come to our last two stories very, very quickly. A subvariant of the Omicron strain of coronavirus has been classified as a variant of interest by the World Health Organization because of its rapidly increasing spread. Why? Because this JN.1 has been found in many countries across the world, that include India, that include the United Kingdom, the United States, as well as China. The World Health Organization does say that although the effects that are coming out of COVID are not as virulent as they used to be, as strong as or aggressive as they used to be, but they are still there. As winter is upon us, the fact is this virus thrives in this winter season, and that is why we need to be extremely careful. The World Health Organization advises wearing a mask in crowded places, covering up coughs and sneezes, cleaning hands regularly, staying up to date with COVID and flu vaccinations, staying home if you are ill, and get tested if you have symptoms. We've highlighted that many times since 2019 when COVID entered Pakistan as well. So of course we need to be careful, and that should be the strategy in Pakistan as well. Finally, today, ladies and gentlemen, is the 41st death anniversary of the creator of Pakistan's national anthem, Abul Athar Hafiz Jalandhari. He was born in Jalandhar in Indian Punjab in 1900, the 14th of January precisely. His family migrated then from Jalandhar to Lahore after partition. He was a great poet of song as well as poem in ghazal. His extreme achievement is Shahnama Islam, in which he wrote in poetic form and published in 4 volumes as well. He was also given the title of Firdausi Islam because of his contribution and because of his poetic nature as well. The second major achievement is the national anthem of Pakistan. Of course, we know the national anthem by heart. He will always be remembered for his unique creation. He passed away on this very day in 1982 in Lahore and is buried near Minar-e-Pakistan. Great people like him might pass away, but their work lives on, and that is what legends are made of. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's news, and we'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories, segments that pertain to us, you in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.